Hello, everybody. Welcome to The World We Share, a global conversation. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, along with my talented and gifted co-host, Dr. Natalie Forest. Good day, Natalie. How are you?
I am awesome, and I'm excited about this show, especially today. How are you doing?
I'm great. This is our inaugural show. So for those of you who are listening or watching, you're so blessed because this is our first show. So it's going to be a great show. And it's actually something that I think is unique. Natalie and I talked some time ago, and she suggested, this is her idea, I don't want to take any credit for this, but she suggested that we do a show about what's going on in the world and how it affects humanity, meaning all of you. And we want to make sure that we put a show together around that. And we definitely are going to want your input and your connection with us, your engagement with us, because I think this show is going to be spectacular. I think it's really going to grow. What do you think, Natalie?
I would hope so, because we don't just want to present things, we want to talk about them. And of course, we invite everybody to participate. Whether it's topics, whether it's suggestions, whether it's comments. Yes, this is about the world we share. And you and I, we're just two people.
We're just two people. As a friend of mine once said, I'm nothing special, I'm just a vessel.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So Natalie, what are we getting into today?
Well, guess what? You mentioned that you and I talk sometimes. So today's topic is communication.
Ooh.
And I think we all know that communication has a variety of subjects to it. So we're just going to start out a little bit globally about communication, such as, is it really nonverbal, verbal? Is texting good? All those sorts of things. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great to me. Sounds great to me. And before we get into that, guys, I want to let you know that The World We Share is brought to you by Media Boss Pro. Want to make sure you guys take advantage of what we're doing at Media Boss Pro. We're looking forward to making sure that you all can be seen in the media and you can drive your competitors crazy by using media. So Media Boss Pro. So let's get us going, Natalie.
Yes, let's get us going. Communication. So I'm going to point out something really silly and obvious, which is, one, you happen to be a male, I happen to be a female, your skin color is different from mine, and more importantly, we're in two different countries and different time zones.
True.
So all of that impacts our communication. Most people have probably heard about the fact that there's nonverbal, verbal, there are all these different things. And, just before the show started, you mentioned a couple of interesting communication efforts. There is a lot of misunderstanding in communication.
Oh, God, yes.
And when I looked it up just this morning before the show, I found it interesting that, and I told you this, that the first thing that popped up, I put it into a browser and I said, what is the biggest challenge in communication? And the first thing on the list was time zones.
Interesting.
That's what I thought, because I did not think that time zones would be actually the most important thing. I mean,
I can't even see that.
Well, I can.
Well, I guess it depends on what type of communication they're talking about.
True.
Because I can honestly say, and this happened recently, that in recent weeks, that, and I'm not even talking with you, but with people who we've had calls scheduled, and we got the time zones mixed up. And like, for instance, just like 2 weeks ago, I was in the Mountain time zone. Now I'm in Eastern time zone, and there were appointments that I was setting on Eastern time zone, but my calendar was set for Mountain because I was on Mountain time zone.
Yes.
And I was confused when I got back. Like, hold on, I thought we set it for this time, and it was for this. So yeah, I can see that, but I guess it depends on what type of communication you're talking about.
Absolutely. But to stick with that, we live in a digital world, right? I mean, there have been books written about a global world, us coming more together. And thanks to the last 2 years, especially right now, we're talking a lot about home office, working from home, working
Yeah.
from anywhere in the world.
Mm.
So time zones, I think in today's world does make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
I guess, yeah, I see that. It's the biggest though. Wow.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think the biggest, I didn't tell you this before, is the cultural one.
Oh yeah. Almost definitely. No
And I'm
doubt.
not talking, US versus Germany or Japan versus India. I think we often forget that cultures are also subcultures. Because I've lived in the US for a long time. I mean, half my life. And still there are like little things where if you talk to somebody from Texas, there are some words, some expressions that they use that are very different from somebody in Boston or, in our neck of the woods in
Right. And
Maryland.
that's the same country.
Yes, exactly. And then, words. So I think we all know that nonverbal communication is sort of like the biggest. I think it ranges, when we're looking at the data, it ranges between 85 to 93% is nonverbal. And, I'm using my hands, I'm looking at you, all of that stuff. It's also the words, because language changes.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take this just for a moment a little further, because I'm a historian by trade, as you know.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed at today's communication and the words. We started out way back when with drawings in caves. And then somebody came along and said, no, only black on white is real communication, real writing. Only that story counts. And we forgot about oral history. Okay. And what are we doing nowadays? I'm looking at my daughter and I can barely understand the acronyms. And then, they're like short videos, like 20 seconds at most, and you don't even understand the content. Oh, gosh.
People are having communication with nothing but emojis. I was like,
yes. It's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then they create new ones. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because language changes. Okay, I'm going to date myself, and I think you can follow me. Do you remember when the word bad meant bad, like negative?
Yeah, yeah.
And what does it mean now?
Yeah, it means you're cool. I mean, and I think that happened probably in the 70s, actually.
Yeah. Yes. But it's still, and then we have other words that change too. I mean, there's like now there's this new word that kids, I think, have phrases like, bombastic side-eye. And I'm bringing that up because that's cross-cultural and cross-country.
Yeah.
So, we came to the US to visit friends just this summer. And I was like, okay, we'll see if the kids get along. And they use the same phrases. I was like, oh my gosh. Germany and the US, and you all use bombastic side-eye. I don't even know what that means.
And see, a lot of that, like you said, we have the internet now.
Yes.
So that communication makes it easier for them to get the same expressions and so forth, because they can use the internet and watch the same videos, listen to the same podcasts, whatever, and get the same expressions now.
Absolutely. And just to explore this issue a little further, there's also, of course, we know we have the message, we have the sender, and then we have the receiver. And depending on what culture you come from, you think you're sending a message and somebody else receives it completely differently.
Yes. Kind of like the conversation I told you about before we got on.
Exactly. Not to mention, a lot of people are have a lot of communication with themselves, you put it that way. Okay. The internal communication, which usually tends to be negative. And so if you say something, you're trying to give a compliment, for example, and the receiver looks at it and goes, whoa, what's wrong with my hair? She said,
Yeah.
"Oh, your hair looks nice. Does that mean that normally my hair doesn't look nice?"
Yeah.
So
That's so true.
there's a lot going on,
It's so
isn't
true.
there?
And see, that's why verbal communication is so important.
Yeah.
That's why, our tone, our
Mhm.
inflection, our even when we say things, the physical expressions of our bodies with the words, they go together, because we've all done it when we heard something that someone, well, we read something that someone sent to us and we misread it,
Mhm.
misread their meaning. We've all done it before. And because I tell you, Natalie, one of the, I'm going to say this, it's our show. One of the dumbest things that I think exists is that if I capitalize something, I'm yelling at you. I think that is the dumbest thing.
Oh no, that's not dumb. Don't yell at me.
I would never yell at you now, but it's just because I
Yeah.
said, let me, because I said this to someone. I said, so you're saying that if I capitalize it, it's yelling. I said, okay. So what about if I put Google on there in capital letters? Am I yelling Google? Well, no, that's a company. But I typed it and I used capital letters. So doesn't that mean I'm yelling it? By your
Ooh,
definition, it just doesn't make sense to me for people to get upset over stuff. To me, I'll use capital letters for emphasis,
right.
but it doesn't mean that I'm yelling at someone, because I don't yell via text. I just it just
Or
doesn't
you
make
pick
sense.
up the phone.
Right. I'd rather, if I'm going to yell, I'm going to pick up the phone and do it, because that is actually yelling. But
Yes.
it's not. I'm typing vigorously, so I'm going. That's so harsh.
But how often do we actually still call somebody?
Well, exactly. We don't. And I'm just like this. If I'm reading something
Mhm.
and I see capital letters, I'm reading emphasis. I'm not feeling, oh my God, I'm attacked. I'm not feeling attacked because you capitalized your letters. It's not gonna hurt me. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
but if you do pick up that phone, let's see, that's the other thing. If you are really trying to yell at someone and we don't pick up the phone anymore, if you pick up the phone, oh, I'm going to feel it now, because that's not something we normally do anymore. So if you really want to reach me in that vein, hopefully you won't want to yell at me. But if but if you pick up the phone and do it, oh, I'm feeling it now. I'm probably just going to be very quiet and listen to you.
And when it comes to the communication via voice, I don't have a better way of saying that.
Mm-hmm.
There is something to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I think we call people, or even if we leave a voice message,
Mm-hmm.
it's because we want to hear that
I agree.
person.
Yes.
You can write, "I am great," but when I call you and you say, "Yeah, I'm great," it's like, whoa, you use the same words, but the meaning is very different.
And that's very true. And it's funny because some of the words that we use, oh man, like I had this conversation just the other day with someone, and I said, how you doing? They said, I'm not doing too bad. I said, that means you're doing bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, I mean, I'm okay. I said, but you said I'm not doing too bad. That means you are doing bad. You're just not doing too bad.
Huh.
And I'm like, the words, we really have to be careful when in communicating with. There's a book I read a long time ago, by Shad Helmstetter, What to Say
Mm-hmm.
When You Talk to Yourself. And that book always stuck with me, because we say so many negative things to ourselves,
Yeah.
and then we project that out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just never good to keep doing that. That's why I started changing language on a lot of things. I met a gentleman years ago, this guy named Michael Roberts. He's a billionaire, and I was having a conversation with him, and I said, I need to start thinking more outside the box. And
Mm-hmm.
he looks me dead in the eye, Natalie, and he says, why are you in a box?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
And I said,
Exactly.
wow, I guess I put myself there, huh?
Yes. Yes.
I haven't used that expression since then. I stay away from that because of
Mm-hmm.
that conversation.
And since you mentioned our internal conversation, I
Mhm.
think we've been sort of programmed to really be hard on ourselves. Let's just put it there. I mean, there are some people who, you know, fantasize about how grand they are. And yet, when you really talk one-on-one with them, they also have the same self-doubts that everybody else has. But when it comes to words, the power is so important. So your example, you know, outside the box, inside the box, all the categories we have nowadays. There's this little word that a lot of people use, and that's problem. I try to avoid it.
Yes.
I call it a challenge.
Challenge. Yes.
Yes.
You can overcome a challenge. You can win the challenge.
Yes. Yes, I can overcome a challenge, but a problem is like, boom, I have a problem. And then, you know, once you say you have a problem, then you need to go see a psychiatrist, you need to go to a therapist, you need to figure out what the problem is, and you can't do it because you can't fix it.
There's no such thing as a positive problem.
Yes.
As you can have a positive challenge. You can't have a positive problem. It's all negative talk, and we really need to reprogram ourselves. Well, we have to deprogram and then reprogram ourselves.
And you know, it is the deprogramming. It is, the world is made up of, you're gonna like this, black and white. Okay, of bad and good. But why? If everything is a challenge, then we can learn from everything. So communication, I think, is not a problem. But it's a challenge, and the question is, what can we learn from our communication, isn't it?
And I always say, God didn't put us here to be independent. He put us here to be interdependent, which means we have to communicate. We have to communicate. And, you know, we have different wars that go on in the world, different battles, and they all could be solved with better communication.
You just used the word, and I think it was Mother Teresa who said you can never win a war. She said something like that, because the minute that you say the war on something, you're creating that cycle. You're creating the cycle. We're fighting a war. And, you know, she explains it, of course, much better than I do, but it's not the war on drugs. It's not the war on racism. It's not the war on something. No, let's look at it. So we bring the positivity in and we say, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What is the good we're trying to achieve? Because more people will jump on board if you try to achieve something good.
Wow. And it's funny because you said, you know, what are we trying to achieve? But that goes back to something we discussed before we came on, and just maybe another episode. But that's the propaganda.
Yes.
Because what are we trying to achieve? It depends on who's putting the narrative out. And because, as we know, when there's a quote unquote war going on, whoever controls the media puts out a certain propaganda and a certain message they want everyone to buy into.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, and in today's world especially, and I think it's always been like that, if you don't buy into that message, you are the enemy, or you're working with the enemy. I mean, just think about in the 50s, if you didn't buy in everything, you were a commie. Remember that? So it's just how things are. And unfortunately, we don't open it up for just communication. See, I know, as much as Natalie and I love each other so much, we don't agree on everything, and that's okay.
We don't.
I'm sorry, we don't. But see, here's something I learned from someone a long time ago. If you have two people who agree on everything, one of them isn't necessary. So it's okay to disagree, because it challenges you to think. It challenges you to look for different solutions. So it's okay for everyone not to agree. We don't have to fight because you just don't agree on things.
And when you disagree, it doesn't mean that you hate the other person, right? You can agree to disagree. You know, it's one of those things that in some cultures you can scream at each other, yell at each other over an issue,
Yes.
And then you go out to have a drink, or you eat dinner together, or you go to the movies together, because that was the issue. That is not the person.
Right.
And that's also very important in communication, that we detach an
Yes.
opinion from the person.
The person. Right.
It's
And
like,
an action from the person.
yeah,
Like I've told people, there are certain things, certain characteristics or things that I don't like to think, certain things people do. I
yeah,
don't like what you do. It doesn't mean I don't like you.
correct.
So
Yes, yeah,
it's just, yeah, it's a totally different thing. And a lot of people have a hard time. I'm not going to say can't. They have a hard time separating those, because we all can if we put the effort in.
yes. But it is the effort. And I'm going to sort of slowly lead us to the fact that the show is coming to an end. And what you just said is communication is an effort.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't want to put the effort in, or they haven't been taught how to put the effort in.
I love it.
While, I would say that once you put the effort in, what you put in, you get back. So if you don't want to get yelled at, if you don't want to be misunderstood, you got to put the effort in and say, whoa, why did you capitalize that? Or, whoa, you use this word. What do you mean with it? Or in the example you brought, if you say, I am not doing too bad, what are you actually saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we need to really be open to that.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of a better way to end this segment by what she said. Write it down. I'm telling you, you'll have the recording so you can listen to this over and over and over again. So just please write down what Natalie just said, because I could not add any more to that. But what I am going to add right now is to tell you to stay put, because we have what's called our spotlight of the day coming up right after we take a break here. So stay right with us. You are paying attention to us, and you're listening to us on the World We Share podcast, a global conversation. Stay right here. We'll be right back. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com, and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. All right, welcome back to a global conversation. I'm sorry, the world we share. I got our own title wrong. It's our inaugural episode. Forgive me. Welcome back to the world we share, a global conversation. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, along with my lovely and talented co-host, Dr. Natalie Forest. Natalie, we have a spotlight of the day.
Absolutely. And when we talk about spotlight of the day, it is related or not related to what we've talked about. So for me, the spotlight of today is actually, you're not going to believe it, I'm sorry, animal communication. And what I mean by that is, how do we talk with animals and how do they talk back with us? Because they don't have the same language. Now, don't get me wrong, some animals talk a lot, like one of my cats, but it's the nonverbal communication. And so, for example, when I come home, my cat, who usually sleeps somewhere, I'd say they meditate. She meditates somewhere, and then she gets out of the meditative state and she runs up to the table in our dining room, jumps on the table and looks at me. To me, that indicates she welcomes me.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's like, okay, I'm leaving everything. I just walk straight to her. I say, hello, how you doing? You're making time for me. I'm making time for you.
Yeah.
So in that spotlight for me today, I want to invite all of our listeners, all of our viewers to tell us something about animal communication that
Love
they
it.
have experienced.
I
Now you
love
can
it.
do that on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group. We have the YouTube channel. In the LinkedIn group, you can also not just share what animal communication experience you've had, but you can also suggest other topics
Oh,
because we share the world together.
that's right. Oh, I love that. We share the world together. I can't see you just come up with these great sayings. I love that. We
Thank
share.
you. Thank you. That was a compliment. I'll take it.
As it was a compliment. Please don't take that the wrong way. So
No, I won't take it wrong way. Is there a wrong way?
I don't know.
Okay, just checking.
I don't know. But like you said, some people give a compliment and other people receive it differently. So yes,
Uh-huh.
it was a
Uh-huh.
compliment. So guys, yes, please make sure that you reach out to us in our LinkedIn group on YouTube as well, or however you check out our podcast. But make sure you do one other thing. Share it.
Ooh, yeah.
Share
Please.
it with other people and let them know about Dr. Natalie Forest and Dr. Barrett Matthews on The World We Share, a global conversation. Guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again. We'll be here in 2 weeks. So we hope to see you again here. Natalie, I thank you so much for being a great co-host, and we'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
next time.
Absolutely. See you.